This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you, Susan. Seeing that it's 7 o'clock, I will call the meeting to order. Before I get into the agenda items here, something that I wanted to do or I thought about last time. So everybody that's online, I just want to let you know this meeting is being recorded. It is not being live broadcast, but know that it is being recorded and it will be posted to the Town of Mono website. So I just like everybody to be aware of that fact. So number one, we called the meeting to order. Second item, emergency exits. Since we're not in the town hall, we're all in our homes or offices. So if you have an emergency, you know how to get out of your where you're at. So do that or whatever. So emergency exits. To the members of the Committee of Adjustment, conflicts and declarations of pecuniary interest, if you have any, you can declare them now or at any other point during the meeting. Moving along to agenda item number 4, approval of the agenda. Committee members, are there any additions, corrections, or whatever? If not, can I get somebody to move that we approve the agenda, please?
I will so move.
Moved by Jerry Reed and
I'll
seconded.
second.
I can second that. Sure.
Corinne, I heard Corinne first, so thank you. And anybody object to that?
No.
Seeing none. Agenda number 5, approval of minutes of our meeting, Committee of Adjustment, 05 2023. Sorry, you're going to see me take my glasses on and off. I had cataract surgery, and these glasses don't have reading lenses in them. So, approval of the minutes for the committee members, Committee of Adjustment session 05 of 2023. Committee members, are there any questions, comments, corrections about those minutes? That was Wednesday, May the 31st of 2023. Committee
Corinne
members,
Pollard, I so move.
moved by Corinne to accept them and seconded.
I'll second it, Bob.
Thank you, Jerry. Seconded by Jerry. Anybody object to that? Seeing none, so those minutes are approved. Agenda item number 6, public question period. All of our meetings are open to the public, so we do have that allowance for public question period, whether we're in person or whether we're online, such as we are tonight. I don't know if there's anybody who's phoned in or is online who would have any questions, but this is your opportunity. You will have an opportunity, anybody, to ask questions. We have 2 applications tonight, so you will be able to address those when they come up. But again, are there anybody, if there is anybody else online, any questions, please? And hearing none, we can strike that one off. So now we move to our first application here. So Dave Trotman is here. Thank you. So this is application A0223. Sorry, have I got the right order here or not? Yes, Susan?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. I got confused about this. So A02-23, I apologize. Dave, am I doing something?
No, Chair Bob, not anything out of order. I'm just wondering though, we've got the Gerber one first and the Prezuzio second. I'm just wondering if we should do the Prezuzio first because I mean, I think it's just a little bit more straightforward. Let me put it that way. I mean, it's up to the committee and chair to reverse that order. But if that were to be the case, then the Prezuzios can bow out. I leave it in your hands.
That makes sense to me.
I don't have a problem with that, but we'll have to amend the agenda. I agree with you. The Prezuzio one will be very quick, I think. Committee members, are there any objections to us reversing the order of the two applications tonight?
No objection.
No.
No, I agree and move that we change that order so
Okay.
accommodated.
Very good. So that is moved. We should be official with this. Somebody want to second that, please?
Corinne
I'll
Pollard, I
second.
second.
Green, thank you. Any objections to that? Seeing none. So, our friends, Thornstone Consultant, please bear with us. This should be pretty quick. So then we've got application A06-23. Carmine and Cheryl Prezuzio. Carmine, I always mispronounce your last name. I apologize for that. I see you're online there. So subject property is 675076 here, Ontario Street. Official plan is rural, zoning rural A. The purpose is to seek relief from zoning bylaw rural A, zone side yard setback requirement of 9.15 meters for a reduced side yard setback of 5.61 meters for a proposed pool house, storage shed, and pool cabana. We always do these things in the same order. So I've introduced that. Dave Trotman, some quick comments from you on this, please.
Surely, thank you, Chair Bob. Not much here. I mean, if we can characterize any minor variance as a no-brainer, this is it. It's for a supportive and ancillary pool house equipment and cabana structure for an existing in-ground swimming pool. It's in a rural area. It's zoned rural. It's designated rural. Their setback is for 5.61 meters thereabouts, whereas 9.15 is required. They've discussed with the abutting neighbor. There's a letter on file, or at least received through email from that owner saying, I don't have a problem, Mr. Prezuzio, with this. It's of no impact that I can see. It's minor desirable, meets intent of the bylaw and the official plan. The only conditions I have is that they're getting a building permit for it, so I think that's a condition. If there's any back taxes of charges owing, obviously that's a standard condition we apply. And then the only thing I've done is, as I usually try to do, is give a bit of wiggle room. So I said no less than 4.57 meters, which rounds out to 15 feet. Beyond that, I have no problem with this application.
Very good. Thank you, Dave. Carmine, I see you're there.
Yep, I'm
The
here.
showroom, it looks like, are you just up the street from me
I'm in my office. I've closed the door so I could buy 5 minutes. So I'm extremely grateful that you've shoved this thing above the other people. So I much appreciate it, Bob.
well, you got some cars to sell there, eh? So,
I do.
Carmine, do you have anything else to add to what Dave Trotman just said?
No, it's great, and I'm glad that my neighbor Greg sent down the letter so you understand what's going on. And Dave actually picked up something else that he reviewed with me that as well. So that's perfect with respect to my propane tanks that used to be against the building. But I bought a bigger one. The bigger one had to be moved away from the building, so there was a minor variance, I think, there, David, as well, if I'm not mistaken. I believe.
Was that Dave? Was that a question for Dave? Carmine?
Sorry, David. I just brought up, thank you for moving the us up there, but the minor adjustment for the propane tank that used to be against my building, that when I bought the big one, moved it away, you had that in there as well too, correct?
I
Yes.
believe I did, yes. Yeah, it should be in the report.
Okay, thank you.
It simply legalizes the location of it. That's correct.
And you know, that may also disappear because it looks like there may be gas lines coming through there. So then that tank will be gone. So that may not be a concern for the future. But right now, I appreciated you bringing that up.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Carmine. Committee members, Corinne, let's start with you. Questions, comments, please?
I have no questions whatsoever, but I support this application.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Corinne. Jerry?
Yeah, no, I have no questions and I support it as well.
Very good. Dave Carvert?
No questions, support the application.
And Eric, please?
Brent, line 1, please. Brent,
I
line
have no questions.
Okay, and last but not least, myself, I also have no questions and do support this application. So with that, can I ask a committee member to make a motion on this application, please?
Yeah, I make motion to move this motion forward.
To approve it.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And a seconder, please? Jerry Reed, I see your hand. Seconded by Jerry Reed. Any objections to this? And seeing none, so that this application is approved.
Thank you very much.
Very, very good. Carmine, staff will be in touch with you, the usual things. You know this drill. I remember when you and Cheryl had an application a few years ago and that, so.
That's perfect. I know the drill. Thank you.
They'll be in touch and take care of everything for you, so.
We'll get the building permit sorted out, so thank you.
No, very good, thank you. Carmine, go sell some vehicles.
I'll go back to work. You guys have a great meeting. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Very good. That was straightforward. Let me organize myself. Sorry, I apologize. I do have this stuff here. So bear with me. Thank you. First off, for the Thorstone group, thank you for your patience and indulgence with that. I think you can see it was going to go pretty fast. So thank you for understanding that. So moving on to our second application tonight. This is a consideration for an application for a consent, a lot boundary adjustment per the Planning Act, RSO 1990. Application number is A02-23. The applicant is Thorstone Consulting Services, Inc., care of Dan Stone for the Gerber family. Subject property is 833054, 4th line EHS in Mono. Official plan is Greenbelt Natural Heritage and Greenbelt Protected Countryside. The zoning is Rural A. The purpose. Applicant is proposing a secondary dwelling and is seeking relief from section 5 LIVI. A secondary dwelling unit shall have a maximum setback of 50 meters from the principal use. The proposed location of the secondary dwelling unit has a maximum setback of 158 meters from the primary dwelling. So with that, Dave Trotman, I'm going to ask you to talk about this application for us, please. And then after that, the applicant will be speaking to it. Dave, you've got the floor.
Thank you, Chair Bob. Just to clarify, though, this is not a lot boundary. This is a minor variance application for the second dwelling to seek relief from the distance, maximum distance from the existing primary house and ancillary building cluster area of 50 meters.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that.
Maybe I misheard you. If I apologize if I'm wrong, but I think you said lot boundary.
Well, I'm reading from the notice of
No
public
worries.
meeting. So that's why I said that. So if that's not the case, then I didn't think it was either, but it's there on the notice of public meeting. So thank you for clarifying that.
I'll check that, but it's a minor variance.
Yes, thank you.
So this property is not too far north of Highway 9. It's north of the corner property at the northwest, owned by Dandex Holdings. You're familiar with that property, just in terms of context. That's all the only reason I say that. And there's an existing house, and I think there's an outbuilding on it. Yes, correct. It is zoned rural. It's in the Greenbelt area, though, and roughly the westerly third is protected countryside, Greenbelt protected countryside designation, and the remaining 2/3, I guess. So if you want to say the central third and the easterly third are designated Greenbelt heritage, natural heritage. So that's a higher sensitivity designation under the Greenbelt plan. And the Greenbelt plan, of course, is to protect lands away from development, generally speaking, and protect natural heritage. There are 2 sites that have been prescribed or have been identified with the consultants, and one is envelope 1. It's within 50 meters, so would not trigger variance if a house was built there. The other envelope 2 is further back. It's towards the southerly part of the property, in an open area, several hundred feet in from the roadway, but well before meadowland, agricultural meadowland that exists sort of to the north, to the west-northwest of both the primary dwelling and the envelope 2 proposed or considered being under consideration building site. It's just good distance back. It's about 158 meters, so well beyond 50 meters from what we have as a maximum threshold for a secondary dwelling to be within the existing primary house cluster area. And as my report notes, the reason for that is to keep any additional permissible houses, excuse me, within that cluster area with at least some reasonable separation. But the primary reason is to ensure that houses that are, to coin a phrase, well in the back 40, don't try and become future severable lots down the road. We live in our current time, if you will. We live in the presence most of the time, all the time. Planners have to look well beyond, sometimes 10 years, 20, 30, 40 years. And if you're a transportation planner, you got to look out to 100 years down the road in order to exact or apply good principles of planning. It's a long-term approach. And my report says that over time, maybe not with the current owners, but in a subsequent owner, the location of this house on envelope 2 could curry some favor or interest in trying to become a severable lot. Well, that in itself may not be an issue, but on a cumulative aspect approach, it could be. And so it must be considered under the current zoning provisions as to whether it has merit or not. The summary of my report struggled with whether it should be envelope 1 or envelope 2. And I think that envelope 1, although it could be developed, provides more cut and fill pre-construction grading challenges, although not necessarily insurmountable. But if we refer to the Greenbelt Plan policy, particularly ecology policy, it does say try and protect natural heritage as much as possible, whether provincially significant or not. Obviously, part of what I need to do is to try to keep in mind what an applicant and landowner is wanting to do within their own interest and merit, and at the same time ensure that land use policy over the longer term is generally and consistently applied and upheld. The location in and of itself is probably not of any real concern per se. It's a fact that the house could become severed on a separate lot down the road. And again, it has to be looked at in terms of precedent, not just singularly. But in the balance, it would be the less impactful site from a cut and fill and grading perspective, and also from an ecology perspective. So in the balance, my report reflects, I'm going to say, cautious recommendation for envelope 2. And that's basically what I've indicated. There's some other associated factors here, though, one of which is the entrances, which have been assessed by Public Works. And this sometimes happens in that the entrances apparently have not been pre-approved through Mono Public Works. And of course, therefore, Public Works has and reserves the right to ensure that they're safe and meeting policy. And comments from our Public Works manager, Matt Donor, June 12th, indicate that that has to be reviewed. And I believe that the consultants on behalf of the Gerbers and the Gerbers themselves understand that, of course, the entrances have to be vetted through Public Works. The only other singular comment to that is that Public Works in the southerly access, the farm lane access, closer to Highway 9 is probably not really necessary. And in fact, most rural residential properties have one access. And that's, again, in terms of present and cumulative impact. If everybody wanted 12 accesses from their property, there'd be thousands more accesses onto our local roads. The Gerbers, though, indicated to me during our site visit that the meadow will be used for farming. So I've factored that in, or taken into that account in my report in terms of looking at that laneway. And there's conditions under, there's provisions under condition 5 in the recommendation that speak to that. If it's permissible to that laneway to continue from Public Works, then Public Works will make that call. And I believe the letter that the Gerber submitted in terms of understanding some of these matters in the conditions, they've submitted that. We've got that. I think beyond that, the only other key factor from my perspective is to ensure, or best ensure, that there isn't a severable lot down the road. I've indicated that a 0.3 meter or 1 foot reserve be included as another condition. At the end of the day, what I've done is there's a number of little things that need to be assessed as part of this whole application. So I've suggested it be a development agreement. It's not going to be a 100-page development agreement. It might be only a few pages long, but it would better capture some of these conditions that have been outlined in the recommendation, and that's why I took that approach. So that's the summation of it. The only other thing I would ask is that when I indicated there that ideally the Gerbers should provide pre-notice of decision commitment to understanding and agreeing, that is an ask. That was an ask, not a condition, but they've agreed to it. They've done that. They submitted an email, I believe, I printed it out actually, that they understand that there's certain things they would have to do and or pay, you know, preparatory costs for some of those items as noted, and they've done that. The Gerbers have been very cooperative, by the way. I mean, they have all the best intentions, in my view, of what they want to do, which is to get another house on the property for their son Aaron and his wife and family. And I don't see any perilous situation in the short term. I think the report simply needs to ensure that over the longer term, someone down the road doesn't just seize on an opportunity to make an easy severance. And so I think what I've captured in the recommendation pretty much ought to do that. And that's a summation of it, really. At the end of the day, envelope 2 takes some preference from an ecological perspective and land grading or pre-construction grading and cutting perspective over envelope 1, excuse me. So it's not that envelope 1 can't be developed on or built on. I'm certain of that. It's just that envelope 2 might be a bit easier in that regard, and certainly have less of an impact on ecology. And that's really the fulsome context of my report. So I'm free to take questions.
Sorry, Dave, thank you.
Other than that, I suppose Thorsto may make a presentation, excuse me. So maybe I may be out of order that way. I defer back to you, Chair Bob.
Thank you. And that was going to be my next request. The applicant and their representatives, this is your opportunity to tell the committee more about your application. So I'll turn it over to you, and please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening. My name is Dan Stone. I'm the principal of Thorstone Consultants. I am a registered professional planner, and I am retained and representing the Gerber family. With me tonight for this meeting is the Gerber family. I think you saw just a few minutes ago 3 generations of Gerbers on your screen. I think the little boys have left, yes, James and Aaron are here at the meeting tonight, and I have a few comments I'd like to share with the committee in terms of the background and what went into this application and the justification for it. And I think following my remarks, the Gerbers would like to address the committee, and we of course are available to answer any questions that the committee may have. I believe, Susan, you have the short presentation, and I'd ask if you could share your screen, and I'll go through the presentation with you. Assuming Chair Bob that you can hear me okay and good.
Yes, yeah, thank you. Thanks,
Sorry,
Dan.
could you see that when I shared it?
No.
No?
No.
Okay, 1 second. Sorry about that.
Dan, maybe while Susan's doing that, can you let us know the other members of your team that are online here, please?
Certainly. On camera, you have James Gerber and Aaron Gerber, as well as Jeremy Zegers. Jeremy is the architect who's involved with the project from the beginning and is involved with the house design. And I have with me my planner, Bonnie Tang. I think she's on the call as well.
Very good. Thank you, Dan. And now we can see the screen. So
Okay,
I'll
great.
let you take it over.
Thank you, and thank you, Susan. If you could advance to the next slide, please. Just to give the committee an understanding, the property was described by David in terms of the existing property. You'll see the farm fields at the rear of the property, the frontage on the 4th line, and you'll see at the northeast corner the existing principal residence with its driveway access to the north part of the property. And moving south, you'll see the secondary access to the open farm fields. In the center of the property is a wetland feature, which was part of the environmental considerations that Mr. Trotman spoke to, and I will come back to that in a moment. But I just wanted to share with the committee the context of the property. Next slide, please, Susan. So as you've heard, and I'll skip past this quickly, the key elements of this application is the Gerber family is interested in developing a secondary dwelling unit on the property, one which is permitted as of right in your zoning bylaw, but subject to a series of performance standards. It's important to point out that we meet all of the performance standards in the zoning bylaw, save and except the one provision that talks about the maximum distance that the dwelling can be located from the principal dwelling. And as David has pointed out to you, we've looked at 2 alternatives. The bylaw states that the secondary unit cannot be located further than 50 meters from the principal, and we are requesting the committee for a variance to allow us to go to 158 meters. Also important for the committee to be aware of that the family did engage a qualified natural heritage ecologist, and we did perform a natural heritage evaluation and a report in support of this application. And I'll get into the details of that in the next slide. Please, Susan. So this is the site plan, committee members, and you'll see a couple things I'd like to point out to you. The blue feature in the center of the property is the wetland. It's an unevaluated wetland, but the ecologist has looked at it, and it is captured as a natural heritage feature under the Greenbelt Plan. And David made mention of the Greenbelt Plan as being a significant piece of provincial policy that is influencing how this land can be developed. You see the existing residence to the top of the plan, and you'll see the shaded area in red, which is the preferred building envelope for the secondary residence. And it's difficult to see, but underneath the air photography, you'll see a red dashed line, which represents the distance 50 meters from the principal residence. So in order to comply with your zoning bylaw, the additional dwelling unit would have to be located within that red dotted line, which represents the 50 meters. It's a difficult site because of its proximity to the wetland, because of the topography in the area, and there's also as well as the vegetation in that particular area. As you can see, it's very heavily wooded. So one of the things we did, as I mentioned, is that natural heritage evaluation was commissioned, was completed to evaluate the comparative impacts of the two sites from an ecological perspective, having respect for the Greenbelt Plan and its intent to protect natural heritage features. And the natural heritage evaluation concluded that the site that is requested is a better site in terms of its impact to the environment. In fact, it's located within a relatively cleared area and will require very little site alteration and tree removal. So that to me is one of the principal reasons why the application is supportable. The next slide I'll turn to Susan. So again, we've done the detailed analysis of the alternative locations. This natural heritage evaluation the Gerbers had prepared was reviewed by the town's peer review consultant at RJ Burnsides, and the peer review by the consultant on behalf of the municipality has agreed with the findings of the report. The site also, for the family, provides an additional measure of privacy as opposed to the location closer to the existing principal residence, which would be situated on top of a prominent slope in the rear yard of the principal residence. We are proposing that the driveway share the principal driveway, and that the existing south entrance be maintained for farm purposes. If you recall the air photography, you will note that the farm fields are being accessed by the south entrance and are essentially impossible to reach through the north entrance. So we will be making applications to the Public Works Department for those entrances, and that can be done with or without this application, Mr. Chair, as you can appreciate. But the proposed building site, another aspect of it is that it will not impede the ongoing use of the property for agricultural uses. And in my summary, I've found that the proposal satisfies the intent and purpose of your zoning bylaw to provide for additional dwelling units. Next slide, please. Conclusions, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, in my professional opinion, the application before you meets the 4 tests under the Planning Act. It meets the applicable policies of your official plan, and the zoning bylaw, and in particular, satisfies the environmental policies of the Greenbelt Plan, and I'm requesting the committee's support of the minor variance application. I just would like to say a couple supplemental items, and before I ask you to give my client, the Gerber family, a few moments to explain what it is they're trying to achieve here. Yes, as Mr. Trotman had mentioned, the report has been reviewed in detail. I've had extensive discussions with David in terms of the conditions. I have met with my client and we've discussed the conditions in detail. We've had supplementary discussions and correspondence with Public Works. In short and in summary, Mr. Chair, we are happy with the staff report and the recommendations, and we're comfortable with the conditions that Mr. Trotman is recommending. I think the other thing to let the committee be aware of is there are letters of support which have been submitted to the town through this process. Those letters of support have been circulated to the committee. I don't know if you've seen copies of them. I know you're dealing with a lot of matters and see a lot of paper coming across your desk, but I wanted you to be aware of those letters of support. And one of them, of course, is from the farmer that rents the property and keeps the land in agricultural production. Yeah, I think that's it for my comments, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to answer any questions the committee may have, but I'd ask that Aaron or James be given an opportunity to say a brief few words on the application. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. James, I see you're unmuted, so I'm assuming you're going to speak to it. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, we're not the pros here in this situation. Dan, thank you very much for your presentation, and David, thank you very much for your summary of the situation and your report to the application. I want to acknowledge the efforts that you both have put in this process. It's been several conversations over several months, and Dan and Bonnie, the effort that you put in has been noticed by the family. And David, the conversations that we had that laid out the groundwork, and you took the time to explain the situation and the planning policies and everything was very much appreciated, and I think has helped to facilitate getting to the alignment that we have tonight in support of the application. I also want to thank the committee. I recognize that these are volunteer positions, and I thank you for your service to the community in that way. So in terms of our remarks, first and foremost, we're really excited to be in the community of Mono. We took possession of the property last year, and we've done renovations to the main dwelling, and my wife and I just moved in about a month ago to permanently reside here. We're loving it here. The property is beautiful. The previous owners, the Dodds, did an amazing job just stewarding the property and carrying it forward, and we really want to honor that and carry that forward ourselves and create our own legacy on the property. As has been mentioned, the vision is for the 3 generations, my wife and I, Aaron and Ashley and their boys, to all grow up here, and if the stars align, continue even down to the next generation. So given that, we also want to acknowledge, that there's bigger things afoot than just our interests here, and we've tried to be understanding and cooperative as much as we can. So beyond that, the support that we received from our neighbors has actually surprised and really pleased me, considering the short time that we've been here, and it's really heartwarming, excuse me. And I look forward to forming deeper relationships with them going forward. So with that said, I'm trusting Dan, in terms of leading us through technical questions and so on. Aaron and I are here to answer any other kinds of personal questions that you may have, and that's it. Aaron, is there anything that you'd like to add?
No, Dad, I think I just want to echo everything that you've mentioned. We're really happy to be in this community, and we're grateful for the opportunity to to hopefully have an approval on this. And yeah, we're just hoping for a favorable outcome.
Very good. James, is that it then from yourselves? Thank
Yes.
you. So now it's the and Dan, that's it from your side as well.
Yes, Mr. Chair, unless there's any questions.
Thank you. So now, committee members, if I've written this down correct, I'm going to go in the reverse order from our first application. So Eric, I'm going to start with you, please.
I have a couple questions, or just a question, and I understood that you'd said, Dan, that you have reviewed the conditions and the terms of the development agreement, and you're happy with those terms. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. I've had lengthy discussions with David about the conditions. We haven't seen the development agreement itself, but that's something that will follow. And we will discuss the terms of that agreement. But the principles are contained in David's recommendations in the report. And yes, we've reviewed them in detail. I've discussed them in detail, and we're happy to move forward on that basis.
Yeah, I'd like your comments then on a change. I find that paragraph 5C is a bit, it's ambiguous to me, and I'd like to strike all the language after the or. So it just should read, proposed second dwelling shall be used solely for family members and not for short-term or rental purposes. I find the sentence clearer and the term clearer if we strike the remaining language, because there's no need to agree to follow zoning requirements. Do you have any comment on that change?
Mr. Chair, if I could ask the member to go through that again. I'm looking at the condition right now.
All right, we're in paragraph 5C
Yes.
of the conditions, which is the terms of the development agreement.
Right.
I just want to
So
strike.
Eric, your suggestion is to end it at rental purposes. And
That's right.
drop
Period
or
there and
any
strike.
other. This is not expressly permitted under the permissive zoning.
That's, yes. I wanted your
Okay.
comment on that, Dan.
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, I think I'm comfortable with that. And in fact, one of the discussions I had with Mr. Trotman was a lot of these conditions are things that are applicable in any event. It's somewhat redundant to say that we have to pay development charges, for example. You don't pull a permit until you pay the DCs. So there's a lot of things in here that do not.
I concur. I mean, some of them are rhetorical.
No, I agree with that as well, but I just found that sentence.
It would just entrench them in the development agreement. I have no problem. I have no problem.
I want to turn to you next, Dave. You don't have a problem either?
I have no problem with your suggestion, Eric. No, not at all.
All right. That's the only comment I had. I thought
Sorry, Eric?
That's the only comment I had. I thought that the conditions were, I thought, extensive, and I thought that they captured the principle that David spoke of as trying to protect future severance. But otherwise, I have no comments other than I would suggest, and I'll subsequently move to change that. But I wanted to hear from both parties on that. But otherwise, those are my comments.
Oh, very good. Thank you, Eric. Dan, one quick thing. Dan, I know you're being professional and saying the through you, Mr. Chair. I don't do that, so don't you don't have to say that. Not with me as the chair. So thank you, but I find that old-fashioned. So we'll just answer questions.
Understood, Chair Bob.
Yeah, all right. Do I have this correct? Dave, you were the second last, Dave Carbert. I'm going to turn it over to you anyhow. So questions,
Okay.
comments, please.
Well, I actually have a few. Number one, there's no statement as to the size of the existing house on property. How many square feet?
Bob, I will ask Jeremy if you're able to answer that question, or perhaps Aaron, you have a better handle on the actual square footage. We're looking for the size of the existing residence.
Correct.
If you give me a minute, I can pull that up.
I read something in the materials that it was 6,000 square feet.
Well, that appears to be the overall gross size of the proposed new property, building and garage. But there's no reference to the existing size other than within their planning, it says the secondary unit must be subordinate in size to the principal single detached dwelling. But at no place has that been addressed by anyone.
While Jeremy's looking for it, I'll just say my comment that we know that condition and we are seeking to abide by that condition. I don't remember reliably what the square footage of the primary dwelling actually is, but it should fit. You know, the application should fit appropriately to that condition or to that bylaw requirement.
That means that the principal dwelling must be greater than 6,000 square feet. That's a pretty big building.
Mr. Chair, the existing residence
doesn't jive there.
I've got it sitting at 564 square meters, which is slightly over 6,000 square feet. Now that's gross floor area, so that would include your attached garages.
Yeah, the living.
Right, and that one's detailed, but the primary residence that exists today has not been addressed size-wise. Since that's a primary condition, I would kind of curious as to where the compliance is there.
No, the existing principal residence, to be clear, the existing principal residence has a gross floor area of 564 square meters, which is roughly slightly over 6,000 square feet.
Okay, and the proposed?
The proposed, I'll defer to Aaron, but the bylaw requirement, and the reason you haven't seen much discussion on this, is the bylaws requires that it be subordinate in size. But there is no maximum or minimum beyond that.
Okay, then I've misunderstood the information because I gathered what is being proposed includes a garage and it is roughly 6,000. Is just some information not clear?
No, all I can do is clarify the size of the existing principal dwelling unit on the property, which is slightly over 6,000 square feet in gross floor area. I'm hoping maybe Jeremy or Aaron can advise on the size of the proposed additional unit, if that's what you're looking for.
I think Jeremy's actually looking that up right now, David. We have not finalized the design for the home yet. We were waiting to know what the building location was going to be before doing that.
Okay, cool.
There are some drafts that have been done, and I can tell you that those drafts are significantly less in square footage than the existing dwelling that's on the property, my father's house. But I think Jeremy may be able to answer that in a moment, hopefully, if he can pull it up.
But rather than get bogged down with the specific numbers, I think we've heard it a couple of times that the understanding is simple and straightforward, that the secondary dwelling will be smaller than the primary one. So I think that's the basic understanding and your agreement. Dave, with that agreement, does that
that answers that question. So I'm not totally clear as to why the primary location number 1 doesn't fit the bill for a secondary residence for family. I mean, the intent is to have them close by. So as James gets older, you can actually look after him, and having him within 100 feet is a heck of a lot different than 600 feet. So, I mean, that's the original intent of the bylaw and the conditions of that. So Are you trying to get away from James, or what's the other? What's the primary factor of moving that far away? Because for the farmer, that's as part of the conditions having that separate entrance closed. I don't think the farmer's too happy about that, because your primary road coming out of property one isn't big enough to accommodate him getting equipment down to the field. So how is all that going to be addressed?
Dave, if I could respond, I'll let Aaron speak to the question as to whether or not he wants to be close to his father or not. Again, the reasons and justifications for the location which has been selected are initially environmental, because the location number one, which fits the bill in terms of the 50 meters, would have significantly greater impact on the natural heritage feature which the Greenbelt Plan is seeking to protect, that being the wetland, in addition to the significant forested areas. And again, we've had natural heritage experts out in the field. They've done their site work, and your municipality has peer reviewed that work and accepted it. So that's the one driver. I did mention it also, the location, as David has pointed out, it's not impossible to build at that particular location. It has a greater environmental impact. It would require much greater site alteration and earth movement because of the hill that it sits on and into the property. But my other point was that the location of the secondary unit at that site would have a significant impact of overlook into the rear yard amenity space of the existing principal. And quite frankly, I think it would be too crowded in that particular location. It would be contrary to the whole notion of rural open space and the enjoyment of a countryside location. I think we've addressed the potential future severance, which is the largest single issue that the planning department has on this thing. And I've responded to it in my submissions to planning department in terms of severance is simply something that can't happen if you have any respect for the planning policies. They don't permit severances at this particular location. That said, we've agreed to these instruments and this development agreement and the 1 foot reserve to prevent that from happening. That's what Mr. Trotman has recommended, and that's something that we're agreeing to work with. So I hope that answers the question. But if there's any supplemental from the family, maybe they can add some context as well.
Yeah, well, I just want to add that, in terms of the ecological impact of the location one, it's a graded thing. If we are minimizing impact there, one of the things about it is that it's close enough to the wetland feature that we can't actually get 50 meters away from the primary dwelling. And there's also a big hill that comes down as well. And we would end up probably within about 30 meters, in that sense. And it really, the difference between 30 and 50 in terms of the experience, the physical experience, and being in that kind of space is significant. So that's one other element just think to add.
Dave, does that satisfy your question?
That answered my question. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, comments, Dave?
No, I'm still sorting through the 1 and the number 2.
Okay. Thank you. Jerry, next, please. Questions, comments?
Okay, I've got a couple comments, but I certainly agree with location number 2. However, I'm a little bit disappointed in the environmental report. They got well paid to do that, and if you know, I'm sure they did get well paid to do that. They talked different times about their desktop review, and the other thing on their pictures, they've got the 5th line on page 7, and it's not the 5th line. And so if I was to pay for that kind of report, I would be pretty disappointed in those people. But that's got nothing to do really with this application. Well, it has, but it hasn't got anything to do with. I'm not against the application at all. The comment about number 2, I fully agree that number 2 is the right location to do this. I guess David has captured really well on his report how we deal with not having severances down the road with it. Not that never say never, but I think we're in that situation right now that we don't want to be severing lots off or whatever. So, and he has made a proposal of 0.3 of a meter to separate that. And I think David's report was well done in that respect. I think he's looked after that for us and whatever. The one concern I have about, and the same thing with the second driveway, those driveways have been there for an awful long time. And I said to Mr. Gerber this morning, I drove a bulldozer whenever they were building that road, and I've lived here all my life, and I walk up and down that road to school and one thing and another. So, and walked over most of that farm before there was trees on it. And I think there's no question that the second location is a secondary location, but the driveways kind of concern me. Not because they're there. I think they should be opened up, and they're certainly on a flat piece of the fourth line. I don't think anybody needs to make any kind of power play to have another driveway made out. Certainly the farm driveway that is referred to as being not in repair has been used in the last year for some access in and out, but I know that it's used all the time with farm vehicles, and some of those farm vehicles are a heck of a lot bigger and heavier than what cars will be. And I guess I'm really concerned if we have another driveway or use the one driveway, how will the snow get moved? And that's going to really put an impact on the Gerbers all the way through their lifetime. So I personally don't think that we should be holding anybody's hands to the fire to change driveways or permits or whatever. There was mention made that there was never a permit for when Dodge built the house, and I know that they applied and did everything right as they went along. Again, I've sat here and watched all that stuff happen, and so if we can't find the paperwork, that's really up to the administrators. I don't think it's up to the Gerbers to have to pay and have that rehashed. So that's really all my concerns. I certainly support the application. Think they're doing it right. I think it's going to be a benefit to the community, and hopefully it's going to be a benefit to the family. So that would be my respect on it. I think that's all I have, Bob.
Excellent, Jerry. Thank you very much. Corinne, please.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with Jerry, actually, with regards to the environmental report. It was a little weak, but the first comment that I'll make is it was really appreciative to hear the Gerber comments with regards to and seeing the 3 generations of family that aspire to live in Mono. And to me, that was absolutely touching. And I thank you for that. And it's beautiful to see the additional generations wanting to be here. So for that, number 1, thank you. And the questions I had are with regards to the natural heritage features. With regards to the site, I think site 2 obviously is the area that you certainly want to build on. Is there any natural heritage that you feel needs to be restored as a result of building there? And then the second question that I really wanted to touch on was, because I had seen some discussion with regards to floodlands, and is site 2 subjective in any way to any type of flood plain type of impact? Those are my questions.
Dan, do you want to answer that?
Sure. In terms of the floodplain, I can tell you that there are no areas of this property that are subject to flooding. There are some areas that might be regulated by the Conservation Authority, but not subject to flooding. And I think Corinne, please help me out. The first part of your question was also natural heritage related. What was that having to do with other natural heritage features on the property?
Just with regards to any restoration of any type of natural heritage as a result of putting in this building site, did they need, or is there a requirement for any type of restoration of natural heritage features that need to be restored? Do they have to do any additional plantings as a result?
To answer your question, the only recommendations that the consultant came up with was typical erosion sedimentation control features to be installed during the construction period. But in the absence of a detailed construction plan, and as Aaron has indicated, the house design has not been finalized yet, but the location under envelope 2 is one which is mostly devoid of any significant vegetation. So I wouldn't expect to be any significant tree removal necessary as a result for both the building envelope and the septic system. But again, we don't have those details yet, but relative to the other location, which would involve significant tree removal, this site is much preferred.
Perfect. So I would look to some kind of condition with regards to any removal of any type of whether it be trees and or vegetation as a result of the site that's picked. But, you know, again, I also concur. I have no issues whatsoever with this plan going forward at all.
Okay. Is that it, Corinne?
It is. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to address your concern about natural heritage, I see in Dave Trotman's recommendations, section 5F, which is a big paragraph there where he talks about natural heritage features. So that satisfies me about that. My turn here. I think in regards to site 2, our planner has recommended that. I'm looking at the Burnside, the town's engineer memo of May 8th. They're supporting site 2 as well. So with that, I'm satisfied with that. I've got no further questions, and I will be supporting this application. So that's my 2 cents. Dave Carbert, let me come back to you if you have any other questions or comments, please. Dave, we can't hear you. Dave, unmute. There you go. Thank you.
Yeah, trying to. Sorry, my dog is helping me. I really don't have any other questions. I've read through all the reports. I mean, site B or site 2 seems the more logical one as far as placement goes, but it does open up that the site is being chosen to split the property with a house on either half, so to speak. So to me, the biggest question is down the road for a severance, and Trotman's idea for closing that off in the future, I think, pretty much satisfies that. But as to the actual variance and the intent of the bylaw being on site 1 and easily being within the 50 meters, my initial response would be to defer this to the town engineer to actually, as an independent, go to the site and confirm whether site 1 really is off the table. The environmental aspect of trees that were planted by the Dodds being red pines, we're not talking about natural walnuts or red oaks or anything that was naturally there. Red pines is not native and thus was planted years and years ago. So whether they have to be cut down to be moved to make that property allow for the building of the house, it's easily to be reforested out with natural species rather than pines. And that's just my own opinion as to the two different sites. The two consultants that have worked on this obviously have complied with what the Gerbers are looking for, so I can't cite anything really right or wrong on that side. But the last letter that came through on email from Susan of the farmer stating that if that secondary road is closed, he basically doesn't have access. But the report is through the Gerbers would be able to take the existing road coming through property 1 down to 2, that they would be able to strengthen and widen that to be used by the farmer. I'm a little confused as to would that actually happen, or is the condition going to be that the road going into proposed site 2 is closed? If so, there's nobody going to be farming it. So I don't understand what is really going to happen as far as the conditions. Now, I don't know if that's Dave Trotman or Public Works. I'm a little confused as to that point.
Dave Trotman, what is your response to that? Are you still with us? Thank you.
I am. If you could just, Dave Carver, just say again what your question is.
Okay, I had a few, but so tell me, is part of the conditions on this going to be related to the Public Works stating that the road number 2 going into proposed site 2 that the farmer has been using, that must be closed? And then the road going into existing house number 1 be extended down, allowing the farmer access?
So what I've got in condition 5E relating to Public Works is predicated on the condition, the email comments of June 12th sent to us from Matt Donor in Public Works. That's on page 6, I believe. And what he's noted is that although there's 2 entrances there, neither of them got pre-approval. But I think, as Jerry mentioned, that's not uncommon or rare. Some of these entrances around the town have been there for a long time, and people come forward with applications. It's at that point that another department, Public Works, for example, determines, hey, yeah, we know they're there, but we've had no previous opportunity to really deal with them, I suppose. So here we are now, we can. And that comment from June 12th says, there are no existing entrance permits. I mean, from what I can infer in that comment, I don't think Public Works is about to say that the northerly entrance must be stopped up permanently and there shall be no other driveway to the existing house. I think they simply need to go through the machinations and get on record that it needs a permit, an entrance permit. I'm talking the northerly entrance now, and in a sense legalize it. As for the second one, the laneway, I'm referring to it as a laneway, the farming laneway, southerly end of the property. The comment is that the entrance, I'm just reading here. Most south entrance is in disrepair, not being used, and needs to be closed up as a permit condition. So I don't know that Matt Donor had the benefit of information about its farming access usage. So I did send him my report, and he says the conditions stand that he's indicated. That's on page 6 of my report. Those
Dave, I'm looking
so
at
I thought, well, what
9.
I'll do and what I've done is in the no, but I have put Public Works comments on page 6 at the top.
Yes, yeah, at the top. Town of Mono.
So, but anyway, to go right. But if you're correct, Bob, if you go to page 9, what I've done is I've encapsulated those Public Works comments in condition 5E, saying, well, look, if at the end of the day committee approves this minor variance, and if at the end of the day we have a small development agreement to deal with some of these matters, and if at the end of the day Public Works says, well, no, we absolutely don't want the southerly entrance, after some discussion between Public Works and the applicant and Dan Stone, Thorson, etc., well, then that will unfold in its natural form. There's still another entrance, the northerly one, which will provide access to envelope 2. But at least what I've got in a condition in the recommendation provides for that further dialogue as a separate matter. It shouldn't, in my view, hang up or, you know, or derail the minor variance at hand, in my view. It can be dealt with one way or another. And I'm sure it could be that the Gerbers and Thorson can maybe demonstrate to Public Works, well, no, there is some ongoing or near future farming activity that's going to occur, hence the need for the laneway. So that's really what condition 5E, I think it's sub I I've got, speaks to. And
Dave,
then that's it.
I agree with you. And when I read that, you know, this is a consultative process, and the Gerbers are agreeing to that condition, and we're not going to settle all those specifics here tonight, but they will have to work with Mono Public Works.
Yeah. As long as that's satisfactory, that answered my question. I just didn't want it hanging.
Yeah, may I add one comment? This is James.
Oh, James, yes, yeah.
Thank you. No, the one thing about the Public Works report and saying that the south entrance is not being used, the disrepair part, we'll need to understand what they mean by that. But the not being used part is not factually correct. The south entrance has been in continuous use by the tenant farmer since before the well, since as long as that lane's been available to them, and before that as well, they were accessing it off of Highway 9. The original intent from, as per the Dodds, for creating the farm entrance was in relation to the fact that they were severing the what's now the On the 9 property, and that they needed, the tenant farmer needed to have access into those westerly farm fields. And he also confirmed that since that road, that entrance has been built, that it's been in continuous use up till now. So those fields are being farmed. Yeah.
Jerry?
Yes, no, that's certainly true. It's been used for, well, Mark Glassford's using it now, I understand, and his brother used it for years and years. And he, like I say, he ran heavy equipment, heavy farm equipment in and out of there. And I would say that I wish, this is a snide comment, but I wish that the roads guy would take a look at the potholes rather than look and say that laneway is disused, because it certainly isn't. It has been used continuously. So anyway, that's.
Yep. Jerry, thank you for clarifying that. Dave, anything else? Dave Carbert?
Nope. That answered the question that I thought would be hanging.
No, good questions. Thank you. And we get clarity. One of the things that I should have said when I said my words here, I agree with Eric's comment. So condition 5C, that we remove after rental purposes, remove the words or any other use is not expressly permitted under the permissible zone. So committee, are we in agreement to remove those words?
Yes,
I
I'd agree.
would so agree. Yeah, and I think Derek made it a motion, so if we need a seconder for that way, I would certainly second that.
I'll make the motion that we approve the application on the terms as submitted by Dave Trotman in his memo, with that small change to remove the words in paragraph C after purposes. So we put a period after purposes and strike all the rest of the language of paragraph C of the conditions. So I'll make that motion.
Excellent, thank you. So Eric moved that motion. Jerry, you're seconding that?
Yes.
Seconded by Jerry. Anybody object to that? Seeing none, then the application is approved, subject to the conditions that Dave Trotman has outlined in his planning report. Is that all good? Good luck, guys. So,
Thank you very much.
that part's done. I'm always curious. Where are you moving from?
We've been living in Brampton for the last almost 30 years. I grew up in a very similar rural property in York region, actually. And, you know, forests like the ones on our property were my playground every day.
Wow.
So this is a kind of returning to my roots. And to be honest with you, Aaron's desire to also be in a natural setting and raise his boys in a natural setting was a return of a dream for me, frankly.
Welcome,
When I was
Gerbers.
so,
Wonderful.
Mm.
Yeah,
when
yeah,
I was
welcome.
so
I
11
lived in Brampton for a long time before I moved up here about 30 years ago. So, yeah. So that is approved. As you heard from the first application, the planning department staff will be in touch. Lots of things to deal with, but they will be in touch with you. Dave Trotman, anything else to say to that? What I just said?
I just want to say thank you for the deliberations. Noted with the amendment by Eric. I think that's prudent. That's fine. That's good. The only thing that's also in my report is that this development agreement, and again, it's not going to be as thick as a Holy Bible. It's going to be some few pages to deal with these matters. We'll need preparation. So I will contact Dan Stone, I guess, James, through your consultant. We'll need a retainer fee to get that going. You won't have to mortgage any properties to do it, but I will need a retainer to undertake that. And I can talk to Dan Stone after the fact about that. So I just want to keep mentioning that. So that's all I have to say.
Very good. All right. So that is approved. Guys, committee, we got a couple more things to do, but you don't need to hang around. So enjoy this beautiful evening.
Thank you very
Good luck with everything.
Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Okay, committee, well done. I'm moving along to item number 8 on our agenda. Other business. We do have one specific item here, which is notice of decision signatures follow-up. Let me just remind the committee. Eric was kind enough to provide this. So let me just quickly read. There's not a lot of words here. This is section 45, 8.1 of the Planning Act, which says the decision of the committee, whether granting or refusing an application, shall be in writing, shall be signed by the members who concur in the decision, and shall A, set out the reasons for the decision, and B, contain a brief explanation of the effect, if any, that the written and oral submissions mentioned in subsection 8.2 had on the decision, 2015 C26 S29-3. So that's what brought up the whole thing about signing things. Susan, can you just update us? After our last meeting, you were going to talk with staff and clerk and whatever, and please tell us what happened with that. And then I think Eric's got a comment, or anybody else on the committee has a comment. So Susan, I'll turn it over to you, please.
Yeah, hi everyone. I didn't have a large update on this from like what the town is able to do, but it was more that I wanted to provide what the notice of decision looked like last time and that process that we went through, and to see how everybody felt about that process and if everyone was happy about that.
Okay, and we used the instead of a DocuSign or anything like that, we simply used you sending it out in an email and all of us replying back to that. Eric, I think you had something you wanted to. You're our resident lawyer on the committee, so you're going to understand this stuff better than I sure do. So I'll turn it over to you, please, Eric.
Well, Susan, I understand there was some discussion of this at that conference you attended as well. What was sort of the takeaway from the conference?
Yeah, so it seems like a lot of people are still doing virtual meetings. So because of that, many of the other municipalities had looked into things like DocuSign. That seemed to be a consensus in the room when the question was asked. But not everybody is doing it that way. But it did seem to be something that that many municipalities have adopted.
I mean, I personally have no great love of DocuSign. I don't think it adds anything more to than the email. The you know, I can't give legal opinions here, but I'm completely happy with the process of circulating a draft decision, getting any member comment on, you know, whether that decision accurately reflects or any changes that could be circulated. And then each member, or those members who voted in favor, then can email back to you as secretary and say, you know, I approve this, and you can attach my signature. The only thing I would recommend differently is that when you prepare the final notice of decision, under each name, just add in small font electronically signed so that it communicates to any reader that in fact that is a signature on the final version of the decision.
Good suggestion. And that Susan, you know, that's easy to do, to put that there. I'm looking at the second page of the. Thank you for sending us the notice of decision of the thing of the last one that we had. Other committee members, any comments about that, using that process of just emailing and replying back saying yes, that's what I voted for?
Simpler is
It
better
works
as
for
long
me.
as it complies.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry, Dave. Corinne says no problem. Dave?
Whatever is the simplest is normally the best. So as long as we're in compliance with the bylaw structure, sure.
Good point. Yeah. Jerry?
Good. No, that's good. Should work.
I'm happy with the way we did it. So I think we're in a total agreement that we'll carry on with this. So since we had 2 applications tonight, Susan, you got to hustle and get us the draft notice of decisions. I would just ask committee members, I know we are all busy and that, so Susan, what would you anticipate? How many days before you'll send this out to us?
With these Thursday, yeah, with these Thursday meetings, typically it will probably be Monday or Tuesday of next week, I would think. We have 10 days to get the notice, like the final notice of decision to the applicant, I believe. So if I can get it to you by Monday or Tuesday, then that should be enough time, I think.
I think for me, Tuesday is fine. So I'm just asking, I'm only asking you that, not to pressure you to do it tonight and send it out by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, just so that committee members check your email after next Tuesday and see what good stuff Susan sent us. And when you get that, then send it back to her and does that work for everybody?
Sure does.
Very good.
The only other comment, sorry, Bob. I
No,
had one other comment to make. Just going back to what was discussed at the conference that I was at. I might be trying to add a little bit more detail into the notice about the decision. You read that that paragraph about setting out the reasons and a little bit more about the impact that submissions had on the decision. That was something that was brought up by the session, I think in the session about the OLT hearings and things like that. So I might be trying to flesh that out a tiny bit more in the notice. Like so far we've been keeping them fairly simple. But if, yeah, you might see a little bit of a change as I try to get some kind of concise language there that summarizes what was discussed, but adds a little bit more depth than the template decision.
Susan, you're very busy with things, and I know that you're going to put together a report. You just talked about that, of the sessions that you attended. When you weren't having fun on Clifton Hill or Lundy's Lane in Niagara Falls. You're smiling, I'm glad. That conference was end-to-end, meetings, heavy meetings and that kind of stuff. So do your best, and when you've got it done, then we can put it on an agenda for a future meeting. So
Sounds good.
Very good. Committee members, any other business? Okay. So last thing, before I thank everybody, meeting in July, question mark. Do we have applications in the pipeline? Dave, Susan?
We do. Yeah. Two, I think possibly two, maybe three. We're still dealing with an applicant to Buena Vista to get a fulsome, satisfactory package, Bob. And so two, Buena Vista remains a bit of a question mark at this point in time, in my view. The other two, though, should have no problem getting on for the July 27th meeting.
So we
They're both
need to
regarding
a question of in-person or online meetings. So Susan and Dave and myself, we should talk about that soon. And if there's any question about it, so I can send an email out to the members. Okay, so anyhow, we'll
you know my preference. I mean, I'm all for in-person meetings where there's an obvious otherwise, I think we're doing quite well virtually. But we can talk later.
Both
No,
of the
you know, and look, sorry, Susan?
Both of the applications are related to second dwellings.
Correct.
So I don't.
So they're minor variances.
Yeah, minor variances.
They're minor variance applications.
And you know what? In that regard, tonight's and our first meeting, and the question of minor variance. I guess our definition of minor variance. I've been thinking about this. Our definition of minor variance is anything that doesn't require a zoning bylaw amendment. Right? That's a minor variance. So if it's a zoning bylaw amendment, that's going to go to the planning committee and then to council and that. But we get to deal with everything up to that point. That's our definition of minor these days. So if that makes sense to everybody. So all right. Well, but we'll listen. If there's any question about these applications, rest assured, if there's questions that we think it should be in person, then I'm going to send out some stuff and ask members about it. So don't worry. It's that decision will not be made without consulting with you. So, you know, we had these two applications tonight. You saw there was no objections to it. I think these two fit perfectly with a, you know, a virtual meeting. Everybody agree?
Yeah, and I also think, Bob, that David Trotman did an excellent job of his report. It certainly captured, I think, what we're looking at, and he was concerned about extra severances and what's going on. Good report, David. I really appreciated that. It was well worth reading.
Thanks, Jerry. Yeah, that was my biggest concern down the road. And so I think with an agreement, a development agreement, we can pretty much nip that in the bud. If it comes back to haunt a future committee or council, there will be a development agreement gauntlet the owner of the day will have to run to try and seek a severance. And so that's the premise on which they have to go forward. It will put some roadblocks in front of it, as well it should. I always look at the long-term cumulative impact.
Well, I know
have
you've
no
heard me.
doubt the Gerbers are true to their word, and they're not interested in the severance. It's future down the road.
Yeah. The problem, you've
Jerry,
heard me say this before. You've heard me say this before over the years, though. People put a second house on, and that's fine, but families change, people change, and whatever. And exactly what David is concerned about is it happens, and the next thing you've got a precedent set, and away we go. But anyway, no, I thought it was well done.
Yeah, Jerry,
that agreement will be registered in the title. So anyone who comes by to look at that property, that will be flagged by their lawyer. They can't get around it. So yeah, it'll take
Jerry,
care of that matter.
I agree with you about the good work that Dave Trotman did on this. Dave, what I'm going to say now is tongue in cheek. Don't be offended. I think Dave Trotman's finally figuring this out, how to do this stuff right. I'm glad you're smiling, Dave. But I have it on here, and I do want to thank David Trotman for that. Susan Pottle, thank you as well. All of the stuff, you know, you're sending us those emails. They came in today. That might have surprised some people, but I got thinking about it, and from a perspective, if this was an in-person meeting, then all of those emails we got today, those people could well be sitting in the audience and stand up and say exactly that. So we're kind of learning this this online stuff. It's changes as it goes. So Susan, some committee members may have never seen all those emails you sent out today. You'll get to see them tomorrow, or probably just hit shift delete and get rid of them because we made a decision. But Susan, thank you for your conscientious effort sending all of that stuff out. So last thing before we move to adjourn, I want to thank members. Job well done tonight on both of those applications. I've said it before. I'm going to keep saying it every meeting. I'm proud of this committee. We do good work. In my opinion, we made the right decisions tonight. We asked good questions, and that. So keep it up. Thank you. You've worked hard on this, and the good service to the town of Mono. So anybody else? Anything? Somebody want to move to adjourn this shenanigans?
I move to adjourn.
Moves to adjourn. Very good. Seconder. Jerry, yep. You leaned in there. I'm putting you down there. So with that, everybody, thank you again. Well done.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
We'll be in touch about July.
Thanks, Bob.
Have a good night. Thank you.
You too.